Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Random Vlogging, a show where I talk about things that are interesting to me and hope other people find them interesting too. So, today, I've been meaning to make this video for a little while now, and my health has not been working with me, and so I've finally got to the point where I can make it, and it's a little bit late, but people are still talking about this subject, so hopefully a few people will get something out of this. The thing I want to talk about is the Epic Game Store and their recent decisions. So for those of you that don't know, Epic Games, the people that make Fortnite, have decided to launch their own digital game store to compete with things like Steam and GOG. And when it first launched, I was a big supporter of it. Because competition is always good for the consumer. Basic economics in a market, the more competition there is, competition drives quality. It forces the companies to improve the quality of their products and lower prices somewhere in there to compete for consumers. And a lot of people have been talking about Epic, and something that I've been seeing a lot of is people not understanding what competition in an economic marketplace is. People that don't understand economics just assuming that this is how it works, and that's bad. That these people, some of them I respect greatly, are just giving out bad information. And the other thing that no one seems to be talking about is actually business law and antitrust laws, and exactly what Epic is doing and how that's going to have some possibly massive ramifications on the market and what could happen. So anyway, excuse me. So right now, there's really only two big stores, other than Epic. We'll get to them second. There's only two big stores to download games from. You have Steam, which has the vast majority of the market share. Most digital games are purchased through Steam in some way, whether it's directly through Steam, through sites like Humble Bundle, where they sell Steam keys that Steam has sold to them, or through gray market sites and things like that, which I'm not even going to get into. But that's all Steam. GOG came into the market a few years ago, and they showed some promise as competition for Steam, but they never really built up enough steam to really challenge Steam and compete with them. Now, again, just having two people in the same marketplace doesn't mean that they're actually competing against each other. Do Steam and GOG compete in an economic sense? Yes, but not a lot. GOG, their launcher is inferior to Steam. They don't have anywhere near the features that Steam does, though they are getting better. And second of all, their launcher is not necessary. Their big selling point is all their games have no DRM, which is an anti-piracy software. The issue with that being, excuse me, the people that care about DRM generally are power users and things like that. People that are very well versed in video games and just computers in general, and they make up a pretty small share of the market compared to just the market as a whole. And even the people that care about DRM, it's not enough for all of them to go, no, we're going to go with GOG. And that's what they kind of were hoping for. That's the big feature they have that lets them compete with Steam. And it's really not that big a thing. There are some game manufacturers that won't launch on GOG because they want their DRM. It makes it significantly more difficult to, well, makes it somewhat more difficult to pirate. DRM rarely works. But it's kind of security theater. It makes people feel that it's more difficult to pirate. When in all actuality, it is more difficult, not by a ton. But there are a lot of companies that just they want their DRM. They may not like how Steam does DRM and things like that, but they'd rather have something they don't like over nothing. So they're not really competing with Steam that much. Wow, my throat is not liking me today. So Epic shows up a few months ago, and they actually have the ability to compete with Steam. They have a dedicated launcher you're required to use, so that's a direct kind of competition. They're selling the same thing. And their first thing that they claimed was, and this is true, they don't take as large a cut from game publishers when they sell the game. If someone sells their game on Steam, depending on what software they're using, Steam will take 30%, and they may have an extra 5% taken by the people that make their software. They use, I think it's Unity. I might be wrong. So the manufacturer actually only gets 65 to 70% of the sale, and then that will get chopped up even more by publisher versus developer, and then costs and that. So it's they lose a pretty significant chunk of change. Epic will only take, I believe it's 12% of every sale. So the manufacturer's getting significantly better deal, or the developers and distributors getting much better deal on Epic versus Steam. That alone is a really effective tactic to create competition, because competition happens when you have a consumer, or rather a market full of consumers, and they have a choice. They have a choice between A and B. That's where competition comes in, because in order to get them to not just choose randomly, they have to come up with reasons why A is better than B, or B is better than A in the eyes of the consumer. So that will cause them to create a better quality product, so they can go, well, we're better because we're a higher quality, or to lower their price. Well, we're better because we're cheaper. And sometimes it'll do both. They'll increase the quality and reduce the price. Sometimes they'll just do one or the other. And increasing the quality can come in a lot of different ways. The Epic method was actually, I thought, a really interesting way, because it's taking advantage of current market trends. There is a huge movement of gamers that are just sick of the horrible environment that game developers have to work in. They have crunch time and all this stuff, and they're just pushed. And the developer companies keep saying, "Well, we have to do this. There's no other way for us to be able to make enough money to keep the studio open unless we push them this hard." Which is baloney, and I could make a very different video about that. But you have a large portion of their customer base saying, no, that's not good enough. You need to fix things. So Epic provides a really good solution to that. They can market themselves as, hey, if you buy games through us, the developers and the publishers and the distributors make more money. So they can pay their people better. They don't have to, but this is how they could market it. They can pay their people better, and we can start reducing some of the strain on actual developers themselves. This is a really effective strategy, and that is an improvement of quality. By buying from this company, you are doing something good for the market. That is a type of quality. It's why people will buy from nonprofits and charities, even if the product is a little more expensive or the product just isn't quite as good. That is a form of quality. Other forms of quality can be anything from actually a better product that will last longer, a product that has more features, things like that. Those are all examples of improving quality. What Epic decided to do after that is when people started getting mad. I believe the first one that at least made big headlines was Metro Exodus, I think was the game. What they did was Epic is making crap tons of money from Fortnite. And so they went to the publisher of Metro Exodus, which had already was going to launch, or it launched a few months ago, I think. And it had been on you could buy it through Steam. It was already there for pre-sale and stuff like that. And so people were really excited about this game. And Epic went to them and said, hey, if you publish only on our store for a year, give us exclusive rights for a year, then we'll give you lots of money. And so they did. And what happened was you had a bunch of people who had already ordered through Steam that were now being told that, well, you can't get it through Steam anymore. And people that were planning on buying it through Steam that were just told, hey, you're not going to be able to get it. You have to go through Epic. Now, the people that had already purchased it were given Steam copies, but they're the only ones that were allowed to. And this happened like a month, I think, or yeah, like a month before the game launched. This is dirty pool. A lot of people got upset about it. Even the people that support Epic right now think this was just a dick move. I've got no idea what's going on. So what ends up happening, this happens, Epic gets a bunch of bad press, but the deal's been done. Goes through, Epic makes lots of money. They keep doing this over and over. And they're not just giving, hey, we'll give you $10,000, which isn't a lot in a business situation. They're not giving like 10 or 50,000. People that have actually spoken to some of these companies, they're giving them enough money that the fact that Epic has a significantly smaller market share, and therefore these people are going to sell less units. Flat out, less people are going to buy the game because it's on Epic versus Steam. For a number of reasons. First, there are people that only want it on Steam. They want all their games in the same place. There's also the people that don't even know the game exists that would find it on Steam just through browsing or through the store homepage. That can't happen on Steam or on Epic Store. Their store is vastly inferior right now, feature-wise. Then there's also the thing that you can buy Steam games on the Humble Bundle store. You can't buy Epic games there. Stuff like that. Like it's a big deal. So these companies are going to lose sales in order to do this, and Epic is paying them enough money that it doesn't matter. They're still making more money from Epic than they would going on Steam, and that's why these stores, these companies are doing that. And I can't really fault them for that because it's a good business decision. This is where I agree with a lot of the Epic Store supporters. They're like, well, no, they should do this because it's a good business decision. Yep. Where I find fault is Epic Store themselves. And this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand. Jim Sterling made a whole video talking about this, and it's a misunderstanding of what competition is. A lot of people will claim, well, the only way you can compete with Steam is by doing this. There'd be absolutely no way they could compete with Steam without doing this. That's a bold-faced lie. It's not true. We see like a lot of people will claim, oh no, it's just they're so big they're impossible to compete. No, MySpace was massive until Facebook came along. Zynga Games was huge. No one was going to touch them until better games came along that weren't quite as predatory, and then they went back to being predatory. This is how it works. Facebook is dead, or that's what people keep saying. It's not, but people claim Facebook is dead because Twitter, and then Twitter is dead because I don't know. Instagram, I think, is the next one, or Snapchat, or a million other things. Products enter and leave marketplaces fairly often. You don't need to completely take competition out of the market in order to compete. That's a contradiction in terms. Now, a lot of people say, well, this is competition. No, it's not. Anyone wanting to buy Metro Exodus in the first year, they don't have a choice, and that's what competition is. It's a choice between two or more products or services. There is no choice. You have to go to Epic. So because there's no competition, that means that the competition being good for consumers isn't happening. You're simply creating a separate monopoly for certain games. Now, a lot of people will argue, well, Steam already had a monopoly. No, they didn't. Steam didn't pay people for exclusives. There were a lot of games you could only get on Steam, and that was simply due to another economic issue, which is to launch on both Steam and GOG, you actually had to change your game a little bit. Because Steam, you have to incorporate some sort of DRM to work with Steam's system. GOG, you have to remove DRM. So that's an extra step that they have to do in order to launch on a separate platform. And if you launch on like Itch.io or you self-publish or something, there's actually a lot of work that goes into that. So only launching on Steam, a lot of times from an economic standpoint, is just easier for the company. And again, Steam gives you the best bang for your buck. So no, Steam has not been paying companies to not publish on other platforms. They don't need to. They have a very high quality service for publishers. Is it the best? No, there's so much better things they could be doing that they simply don't have to because they're good enough. Competition will force them to get better. That's not what Epic is doing, though. What they're doing is technically, you could argue it's a form of what's called predatory pricing, which is illegal. What predatory pricing is you sell an item at such a low cost that you either make very little profit or you sell it at a loss in order to undercut your competitor. And the entire purpose of predatory pricing and what makes it illegal is it's done to reduce competition. Walmart has come under fire for predatory pricing, though they've never been charged with it before. Or they might have, but I think it was back in the 90s. Microsoft has been accused of predatory pricing. It's illegal under antitrust laws, and it's because it reduces competition. And that's exactly what Epic is doing. They are spending significant amounts of money on these games, possibly selling them at a loss, or at least because they're already taking less money from the manufacturer, and they're giving them tons and tons of money. They're probably selling them at very little profit to themselves, or selling them at a loss because they're making crap tons of money from Fortnite, so they can afford to do that. That is predatory pricing. It's almost a textbook example, and it would be illegal, except Epic does not have a majority market share. So why does that matter? Well, again, predatory pricing legally in antitrust law is based around the idea of a large company smashing out smaller competitors so they don't have to compete, and therefore don't have to improve quality or lower prices, despite the fact that they are. But what happens with predatory pricing, and it's part of the thing you have to prove, is after the competition is wiped out, they'll raise the prices again. And they can raise it even higher than before because there's no one to compete with. When you are the only producer of a good, you set the price. So that's what they're doing, is they're actually paying people to not publish on Steam. And I've had some people say, oh no, they're just paying for exclusivity. No, they're literally paying people to not publish on Steam. You want to know how I know this? Because one of the games, I can't remember which, is launching on Steam, or is launching on Epic and the Windows Store. That's the other market that I completely forgot about. The Windows Store competes with Steam and GOG. They do it really poorly because they're even worse than GOG. But yeah, so Windows Store and Epic, they're literally paying people to not publish on Steam. This is anti-consumer. They're reducing choice. They're reducing competition. They don't have to compete with Steam for consumers. Now, a lot of people go, well, they are competing with Steam for publishers. Yes, somewhat. They're not actually, again, competition breeds quality, lowers prices for the consumer. If they are competing with Steam for the publishers, they have to either be improving the quality of the product or reducing their prices. They're doing neither. Their original pitch of only taking 12%, that is an improvement of quality for the producers. Paying them extra money is not an improvement of quality or anything. That's a bribe. It's literally what it is. These are fully developed games that they're just saying, no, we're going to give you money to not publish on Steam. And that's why so many people have an issue. Now, the major straw man argument to this is comes in two forms. One, they claim, well, exclusivity has been something that has happened in video games since video games became a thing. Look at Nintendo. I can't play Mario on my Sega Genesis. You know, I can't play The Legend of Zelda on my Xbox One. That's what. That's exclusivity is part of video games. And again, this is a straw man argument. What we're talking about is not a console exclusive. The thing that makes console exclusives a thing is developing for multiple consoles requires changing the program to work on a different system. They have different operating systems. They run different code. So console exclusivity is based on the idea that you have to completely change the game to put it on a different system. Like making something that works on a PS4 and a PC, vastly different, even just control scheme wise. PS4 has a controller. PC uses keyboard and mouse. And even if you make a game that has controller support, you have to create a way for it to at least interact with a completely new form of control. So that changes things, and that's why console exclusives have existed for as long as they had. Go all the way back to, the NES versus, was it the Master System? I can't remember. The first console that Sega put out. NES had 2 buttons. The Master System had 3. Different control schemes, different ways that they worked. Super NES versus the Genesis. They had 6 buttons versus the SNES, which had 4 buttons and 2 shoulder buttons. Again, just different control schemes, and that's how it's always been. And that's why console exclusives, the other thing with console exclusives, and Bayonetta 2 is a brilliant example. A lot of people got really upset when Bayonetta 2 launched just on, it was either the Wii or Wii U. And the developer said, no, you guys don't understand. If Nintendo hadn't paid for Bayonetta 2 to be developed, there would be no Bayonetta 2. We weren't developing it and then Nintendo just purchased it and stole it out from everybody else. No, they paid for it to be made, and that's why they get it as an exclusive. That's what Epic Games isn't doing. They're not paying for these games to be made. The games are already complete by the time Epic just throws a bunch of money and says, don't publish on Steam. So that's the first straw man argument, is this, it's console exclusive. No, it's not. It's very, very different. The second argument is, well, you guys just don't want to download another launcher. You're lazy. No, that's not the problem that 99% of people have with this. It's the issue that this is anti-consumer. This is removing choice, which removes competition, which monopolies are always bad for the consumer because it increases price and lowers quality. Always. That's how monopolies work. There's no competition. There's no incentive for them to create a better quality product. And Epic does not have the ability to compete with Steam because they launched an inferior product. The Epic Store doesn't have a shopping cart. If I want to buy, 5 or 6 like $2 or $3 games on Steam, I can go just add them all to my shopping cart and then check out as one transaction. You can't do that on the Epic Store. They have no shopping cart. They say they're going to get one, but it's 6 months plus down the road. They put out this map and everyone goes, look, that's improving quality. That's proof of competition. No, it's proof of them putting out a little thing that show that they released an inferior product and are bringing it back up just to standards. It's not showing that they're improving any quality. All the things that they list are things you already get on Steam and GOG and the Windows Store, like achievements, like a shopping cart. If I wanted to create my own merch store, right now, I could create one, probably about a couple hours. Wouldn't be super cool looking, but I could create it. It would have a shopping cart. The technology exists. They just launched a broken product, an unfinished product, and expect people to laud them for it. No, it's not how that works. So those are the two things. Now, I also wanted to talk about antitrust law, and talking about, I already mentioned the whole predatory pricing thing. So again, the reason that Epic is not violating antitrust laws is they don't have a large enough market share to do that. For predatory pricing to actually get charged with it and get fined or whatever, they have to prove that You're selling something at a very low profit margin or a loss. They have to show that your intention is to remove competition, which is anti-consumer, and they have to show that you can do that, that your actions will actually have an effect on the market. Epic is not big enough to do that yet. But what people don't realize is, my first response is, well, what if Steam was doing this? What if Steam was paying people to not publish on GOG or not publish on Epic? Everyone would have a shit fit. And Steam could. They have the money to do it. They make crap tons of money. So why hasn't Steam done it? Because they'd be hit with antitrust laws. However, now that Epic is doing it, Steam actually has a way out. And this has been something I believe Microsoft has done this on it, and Walmart might have done it too. If you are lowering your prices to meet market demands, it's not predatory pricing. Even if you are undercutting a massive portion of your competition and are going to drive them out of business, if you can show that you have to do that because other people in the market are doing it, it's completely legal. So because Epic is doing this, and they aren't just doing it once, they've done it, my count so far, I think 5 or 6 games are Epic exclusive for a year. And that's just what I know. And I'm finding more and more every single day. The more they do this, the easier it's going to be for Steam to just go, okay, you want to play dirty? We'll play dirty. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. Because it's no longer illegal. And they can undercut, because as much as Fortnite is making Epic billions of dollars, that is one game that they're using to fuel their entire store. Steam makes at least that much money from their hundreds of thousands of games that get sold every single day. Their sheer volume means that they can compete with Epic significantly more effectively. And once Epic is no longer able to snipe these companies by offering them tons and tons of money, they have to compete in a more traditional sense, which they can't. Their store is crap. Feature-wise, it has almost nothing except for a friend list and chatting. There are no cloud saves. There are no reviews. There's no shopping cart. Like, that's a big deal, guys. That's a super easy thing to implement. You know, they don't have the features, and they've mentioned that they're, you know, in 3 months they'll have this. That doesn't mean anything. Everyone goes, oh yeah, look, they're doing this. So until it actually happens, they can keep pushing it off over and over, and there's no incentive for them to improve, because all they need to do is make enough money to snipe the next big game. Their most recent one is Borderlands 3, which is going to sell a shit ton. Why? Because it's a Borderlands game. Everybody likes it. It's going to sell massively. And even people that don't like Epic, like Boogie298, have already said, yeah, they're going to buy it because they want to play it now, not a year later. So that's the only incentive they have, is make as much money as they can so they can keep sniping. Because that's the only reason their stores is getting any traffic, is because they're spending tons of money to get exclusives. So that incentivizes them not to improve the store, not to give customers a better experience. It incentivizes them to take a bigger cut of the sales. As much as they've said right now that they're not, doesn't mean that's always going to be that way. They can change whenever they want. It might mean that some developers pull out. They probably won't, especially if they've signed exclusivity deals. They're not going to. But they can change these things and start taking more money, they can require microtransactions that they get cuts from. They can add more and more microtransactions to Fortnite and to anything else they create, because they're only right now incentivized from an economic standpoint to make more money. They're not competing to get more customers. They're competing to get more developers. And the way they get more developers by throwing money at them. That's what they're creating. They're creating their own monopoly. And Jim Sterling even mentions, every company in the world wants to be a monopoly, which isn't actually true. And again, is another example of him just not understanding how competition works. In general, owning a monopoly theoretically gives you the control over things, but it also breeds contempt. It actually makes it easier if someone can break into the market for them to usurp you. It's actually better for companies as well to have at least some competition, because it forces them to make a better quality product. So this idea that all companies want to be a monopoly isn't true, and never will be true, because monopolies are inherently bad for the consumer, and they're not great for the company, except for the super high ups that all they worry about is money. And as much as that's the picture we're given of CEOs and that, it's actually a very small amount of CEOs that the only thing they care about is money. Is money a big concern to them? Of course, it's their job. But the idea that, high up people only care about the bottom line is bogus. Companies that only care about the bottom line go out of business. I know this from personal experience. I have watched stores that I have worked at that switch to a bottom line mentality. I have watched them close, and I have stopped a couple of them from closing by fighting that and actively going against that and making crap tons of money because of it. So no, that's not what CEOs think about, and that's not what big companies think about. Business ethics is something that's taught to bachelor level, undergrad business students, and that is, does a business have an obligation to do more than just make money? And the general consensus across the business world is yes, to a point. Different businesses will interpret it different ways, but every business in the world believes that businesses have a responsibility to worry about more than just making as much money as possible. So anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on this Epic store. Like I said, what Epic is doing is anti-consumer. It's anti-competition. It's going to be bad, and it's not sustainable. And even Epic has said, yeah, this isn't sustainable. We're not going to be able to do this for long. So they're cheating to get as big a market share as they possibly can with a broken and inferior storefront, hoping that by the time the money runs out, they will have enough customers that they can start competing then. But by then, Steam will already have had probably a few years to come up with solutions to what they've been doing, and will probably blow them out of the water because they're just doing stupid shit. So yeah, like I said before, that's my opinion on this. Because of this, I will not be buying any games from the Epic Store. I do have it downloaded on my computer simply because they give out free games, and I like free. I have no money. But that's probably the only thing I'm going to do. And I'd like to just not support them at all by even having the downloader, but again, I have no money, so free games are nice. And I strongly recommend to other people, don't buy games from the Epic Store. Don't encourage this kind of behavior. Let Epic Store learn if they want to compete in a marketplace, they need to compete, not cheat. All right? All right, that's all for me. I'll see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.